The glittering ballroom of the Grand Horizon Hotel in Seattle, Washington, hummed with the refined elegance of a high society charity gala on a crisp autumn evening in 2025. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen waterfalls from the vaulted ceiling, casting a warm golden glow over the sea of tuxedos and evening gowns that swirled across the polished marble floor. The air was thick with the scent of fresh orchids, arranged in towering centerpieces on linen-draped tables, mingling with the subtle aromas of gourmet hors d'oeuvres, seared scallops, drizzled in truffle oil artisanal cheeses, paired with fig compote and delicate caviar toasts that whispered of opulence. Soft jazz melodies floated from a live quartet in the corner, their saxophones and pianos weaving a tapestry of sophistication that masked the undercurrents of power plays and networking among the city's elite. Laughter tinkled like fine china conversations buzzed about stock portfolios, real estate ventures, and philanthropic endeavors that often served more as tax write-offs than genuine altruism. Amid this lavish spectacle, servers glided like shadows, their black uniforms crisp and unobtrusive, ensuring every glass was filled and every plate cleared without drawing attention to themselves. One such server was Sarah Thompson, a 24-year-old woman with a quiet determination etched into her features, high cheekbones framed by dark hair pulled into a neat bun, and eyes that held a depth of resilience born from years of hardship. Sarah had grown up in a modest suburb of Tacoma, where her father had walked out when she was 10, leaving her mother Linda to juggle 2 jobs as a nurse's aide while battling chronic health issues that drained their savings. Now, Sarah was the family's anchor, working double shifts at the Grand Horizon to cover medical bills for her mother's diabetes treatments and to scrape together tuition for her online community college courses in social work. She dreamed of one day earning a degree that would let her help families like her own, breaking the cycle of poverty that had shadowed her life. But dreams took a back seat to survival. Tonight, like every night, she focused on balancing trays laden with colorful cocktails, vibrant cranberry spritzers, deep red merlots, and sparkling champagnes while navigating the crowded room with practiced grace. Her apron pockets held a small notebook where she jotted reminders during breaks. Pick up meds for mom. Email professor about extension. Save for Timmy's school supplies. Timmy was her 12-year-old brother, a bright kid with a passion for science who deserved better than hand-me-down clothes and free school lunches. Sarah's shifts at the hotel were grueling, feet aching from hours on end, smiles plastered on, even when patrons snapped their fingers or ignored her entirely. But the tips from events like this could mean the difference between paying rent and facing eviction. She moved with efficiency, her steps light, despite the fatigue exchanging polite nods with colleagues like Maria, the veteran waitress, who always shared an encouraging word, or young Jamal the busboy, who dreamed of culinary school. The gala was in full swing, honoring contributions to urban development projects that promised to revitalize Seattle's waterfront, though whispers among the staff suggested it was more about lining the pockets of developers than helping the homeless population it claimed to aid. At the head table sat Michael Reynolds, a towering figure in the world of real estate investment, his silver-streaked hair impeccably styled and his custom-tailored suit screaming old money. At 58, Reynolds was the CEO of Reynolds Capital Ventures, a firm that had reshaped skylines from Seattle to San Francisco, with luxury condos and high-rise offices. He was known in boardrooms as a shark, ruthless in negotiations, quick to exploit loopholes, and unapologetic about his ascent from a middle-class background to billionaire status, through sheer ambition and a network of influential connections. His philanthropy was performative, donating just enough to events like this to polish his image, while his company displaced low-income families for profitable gentrification. Reynolds thrived on respect, demanding it from subordinates and peers alike. His ego was as inflated as his bank account, fed by years of yes-men and sycophants who laughed at his jokes and overlooked his temper. Tonight, he was the evening's keynote speaker, regaling the crowd with tales of visionary leadership that masked his cutthroat tactics. Seated beside him were dignitaries, the mayor's aide, a tech mogul from Bellevue, and a cluster of investors eyeing his next big project, a waterfront mega-development that would raise historic neighborhoods. As Sarah approached his table to refresh drinks, her tray balanced precariously with an assortment of beverages, the room's energy shifted subtly. A guest bumped her elbow accidentally amid the throng, a minor jostle in the chaos, but it was enough to send a glass of vibrant orange mango juice tumbling from her grasp. Time seemed to slow as the liquid arced through the air, splashing across Reynolds's lapel and soaking into the fine wool of his vest. The stain bloomed like an accusation, dark and irreversible, drawing gasps from nearby tables. Sarah's heart plummeted. She froze for a split second, her face flushing with mortification. "Oh my God, sir, I'm so sorry," she stammered, dropping to her knees, instinctively with a napkin in hand, dabbing at the mess while her mind raced with apologies. But Reynolds's reaction was volcanic. His face contorted into a mask of fury, veins bulging in his neck, as he shoved back his chair with a screech that cut through the music. "You clumsy idiot!" he bellowed, his voice echoing off the walls, silencing the quartet mid-note. "Do you have any idea how much this suit costs? More than you'll make in a year, you worthless server!" The words sliced like knives laced with venom that revealed his disdain for those he deemed beneath him. Sarah recoiled, but held her ground, her lips pressed into a thin line as she murmured another apology, her hands trembling slightly. The room fell into a stunned hush. Guests exchanged uneasy glances, some shifting uncomfortably in their seats, others whispering behind manicured hands. A few, like an elderly philanthropist at an adjacent table, looked on with sympathy, her eyes narrowing in disapproval at Reynolds's outburst. But most remained passive, the social contract of such events dictating non-interference in the tantrums of the powerful. Reynolds wasn't done. Fueled by rage, and perhaps one too many scotches, he snatched a nearby plate of gourmet pasta al dente linguine, tossed in a creamy pesto sauce with pine nuts and shaved parmesan, and hurled it at Sarah. The dish shattered against her uniform sauce, splattering across her white apron and dripping down her blouse, bits of noodle clinging to her hair like mocking confetti. "That's what you get for ruining my night, you pathetic excuse for help!" He snarled, his chest heaving as he towered over her. Sarah didn't cry. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction. Instead, she rose slowly, sauce trickling down her chin, her eyes meeting his with a quiet defiance that spoke volumes of her inner strength. The humiliation burned, but so did her resolve. She thought of her mother waiting at home, of Timmy's trusting smile, and steeled herself against the tears. Among the onlookers was Anna Carter, a sharp-eyed independent journalist in her mid-30s dressed in a sleek black sheath that blended her into the crowd. Anna had come to cover the gala for her online publication Pacific Truth, which specialized in exposing corporate hypocrisies. With her notebook discreetly in hand and a smartphone recording ambient audio, she had been mingling, picking up snippets of conversations about shady deals. Now witnessing this spectacle, her instincts kicked in. She noted every detail, the fury in Reynolds's eyes, the sauce staining Sarah's dignity, the collective gasp of the room. Anna knew of Sarah vaguely through a mutual acquaintance in the service industry, aware of her struggles and aspirations. As the murmurs resumed and staff rushed to clean up, Anna's mind whirred with possibilities. This wasn't just an incident. It was a story of power imbalance, one that could shine a light on the unchecked arrogance of men like Reynolds. Sarah, meanwhile, retreated to the edges of the room, her manager pulling her aside with a mix of concern and reprimand, though his eyes betrayed understanding. The gala attempted to resume the quartet, striking up a cheerful tune, but the atmosphere had soured, an undercurrent of discomfort, lingering like the scent of spilled sauce. Reynolds, brushing off concerned aides, straightened his tie and forced a laugh, dismissing the episode as just a little mishap, but his bravado rang hollow. Little did he know, the seeds of his downfall had been sown in that moment of unchecked rage, as eyes like Anna's began to plot a course toward justice. Sarah, wiping her face in a quiet corner, whispered to herself a mantra her mother had taught her: dignity isn't given, it's held. The night was far from over, and in the grand ballroom's opulent shadows, fates were intertwining in ways no one could yet foresee. As the hours ticked on, conversations veered back to safer topics: market trends, upcoming elections, the latest in sustainable architecture. But for Sarah, the sting of humiliation pulsed with every step she took to continue serving her smile a shield against the pitying glances. She thought of quitting on the spot, but bills loomed like storm clouds, and so she persevered, her resolve hardening like steel in fire. Reynolds, basking in his perceived invincibility, accepted compliments on his speech outline from admirers oblivious to the phone in Anna's hand, capturing metadata or the subtle nods between sympathetic guests. The Grand Horizon's walls, adorned with murals of Seattle's misty mountains and bustling ports, seemed to watch impassively, guardians of secrets in a city built on innovation and inequality. Sarah's mind wandered to her evening routine, catching the late bus home, helping Timmy with homework, checking on her mother's insulin levels, all while nursing the wound to her pride. Yet in that vulnerability, a spark ignited. She wouldn't let this define her. Anna, sipping a club soda at the bar, texted a colleague, "Big story brewing. Power meets humility tonight." The gala's facade of glamour cracked just a bit wider, revealing the human frailties beneath. As dessert courses emerged, decadent chocolate torts and fruit tarts. Tensions simmered, setting the stage for revelations that would echo far beyond this glittering night. As the echoes of Michael Reynolds's outburst faded into the resumed chatter of the Grand Horizon's ballroom, Anna Carter slipped away from the bar, her mind racing like a journalist on the scent of a Pulitzer-worthy scandal. She had seen enough in her career: corrupt politicians dodging questions, CEOs hiding behind PR spin, to recognize this as more than a fleeting tantrum. It was a window into the rot of unchecked privilege. Anna, with her shoulder-length auburn hair and a no-nonsense demeanor, honed from years freelancing for outlets like the Seattle Times and her own investigative blog, wasn't one to let such moments pass. She knew Sarah Thompson's name from a barista friend who worked part-time at the hotel. They'd chatted about Sarah's grit, how she juggled shifts while studying late into the night for her social work degree, all to keep her family afloat. Anna's own background, growing up in a working-class neighborhood in Portland, putting herself through journalism school with loans and side gigs, made her empathetic to Sarah's plight. This wasn't just about a spilled drink. It was about dignity stripped away in public, and Anna felt a fire ignite in her chest. She ducked into a quieter hallway, adjacent to the ballroom, pulling out her phone to text a contact. "Need security footage from tonight's gala. Urgent." Her connection was Theo, a tech-savvy night shift manager at the Grand Horizon, whom she'd interviewed for a piece on hotel worker rights last year. Theo owed her a favor after she'd kept his name out of a story about underpaid staff, and within minutes he responded, "Meet me in the control room, 5 minutes." Anna glanced back at the ballroom where the quartet had picked up a lively swing number to drown out the awkwardness, and servers like Sarah were back at work, though Sarah herself had vanished into the kitchens to clean up. Reynolds, meanwhile, was holding court at his table, laughing off the incident with a group of investors, his voice booming about clumsy help these days, as if nothing had happened. But Anna knew better. She could sense the ripples, the sidelong glances from other guests, the whispers that would turn into social media fodder if she played her cards right. She made her way to the control room, a dimly lit space tucked behind the lobby, filled with banks of monitors flickering with live feeds from cameras dotted throughout the hotel. Theo, a lanky guy in his late 20s with glasses and a Grand Horizon polo, waved her in discreetly. "What's this about, Anna?" "You said urgent," she explained quickly, pointing out the timestamp of the incident. Theo pulled up the footage from the ballroom's overhead cams, high-definition clarity, capturing every angle Sarah's accidental spill. Reynolds's explosive rise, his venomous words, and the plate of pasta flying through the air to splatter across her uniform. The audio was crystal clear too, picking up his insults word for word. Clumsy idiot, worthless server, pathetic excuse. Anna's jaw tightened as she watched. It was damning, irrefutable evidence of workplace harassment on steroids. "Can I get a copy?" she asked, and Theo nodded, exporting a clip to a USB drive he handed over. "Just don't drag the hotel into it too deep," he muttered, but Anna assured him her focus was on Reynolds. As she pocketed the drive, her phone buzzed with another message, this one from an unexpected source. It was James Ortiz, a young sous chef in the hotel's kitchen, whom she'd met briefly earlier while grabbing a quick coffee during setup. James, 22. With tattoos peeking from his chef's whites and a passion for fusion cuisine, had overheard her conversation with Theo through the thin walls. "I saw what happened," his text read. "Reynolds has been a jerk all night, yelling at us in the kitchen earlier about the appetizers not being hot enough. I recorded it on my phone." Anna's eyes widened. This was gold. She arranged to meet James in the staff break room, a cramped space smelling of coffee and leftover hors d'oeuvres. James, nervous but resolute, played her the audio, Reynolds berating the kitchen staff, calling them incompetent amateurs, and threatening to pull his business from the hotel. "He's always like this at events," James confided. "Thinks money buys him the right to treat people like dirt." Anna thanked him profusely, promising anonymity if he wanted it, but James shook his head. "Nah, I'm tired of it. If this helps that girl Sarah right, then go for it." Bolstered by this additional ammo, Anna formulated her plan. She wasn't just a reporter, she was an advocate, and tonight she'd leverage her position to tip the scales. Back in the ballroom, Sarah had re-emerged, her uniform hastily cleaned, though faint stains lingered on her apron like badges of battle. She moved with mechanical precision, refilling water glasses and clearing plates. Her mind a whirlwind of emotions. Inside, humiliation churned like acid. How dare he reduce her to nothing in front of strangers? But deeper still, burned a quiet fury tempered by the knowledge that reacting would only play into his hands. Sarah had faced worse eviction notices, her mother's hospital stays, the endless grind of minimum wage. This was just another hurdle, she told herself, though tears pricked her eyes in private moments. As she passed a table, an older woman, Mrs. Evelyn Grant, a retired educator and regular at charity events, reached out gently. "Dear, that was uncalled for. You're handling it with such grace," she whispered, slipping a generous tip into Sarah's hand. "Don't let him dim your light." Sarah managed a small smile, the kindness a balm to her wounded pride. In the kitchen, James caught her during a brief lull. "Hey, I talked to that journalist lady, Anna. She's got your back," he said, squeezing her shoulder. Sarah blinked in surprise. She hadn't expected allies in this mess. "Why would she help me?" she asked softly. James shrugged. "Because it's right," And because people like Reynolds need to learn they can't get away with everything. The encouragement fortified her. For the first time that night, Sarah felt less alone, her self-respect intact, despite the sauce that had dried stiff on her clothes. Meanwhile, Anna approached the event's organizers, a trio of polished executives from the Urban Renewal Foundation, including board member Carla Ruiz, who also sat on the advisory council for Reynolds Capital Ventures. Anna introduced herself, credentials first, flashing her press pass. "I have evidence of an incident that could tarnish this entire event," she said calmly, leading them to a private antechamber. There, on her laptop, she played the security footage and James's audio. Carla's face paled. As a Latina woman who'd clawed her way up in a male-dominated field, she recognized the power dynamics at play. "This is unacceptable," she murmured. The other organizers nodded, one already pulling out his phone to alert higher-ups. Word spread quickly. A discreet call was made to Reynolds's own board, summoning a representative, his CFO, Harold Kane, who was attending the gala, to join the impromptu meeting. Reynolds, sensing something amiss when an aide whispered in his ear, excused himself from his table with a forced smile, striding into the antechamber like a king entering his court. But the throne was crumbling. "What's this nonsense?" he demanded, his bluster intact. Anna, unflinching, replayed the videos. Reynolds's expression shifted from indignation to denial. "That's taken out of context," to pale realization as the clarity sunk in. "You can't prove intent," he blustered, but Harold cut him off. "Michael, this is bad. The board's already buzzing. Social media's lighting up with eyewitness accounts." Indeed, a few guests had tweeted anonymously, "Saw a bigwig humiliate a server at Grand Horizon Gala. Classless." Reynolds tried to backpedal, offering a gruff, "It was a heat-of-the-moment thing," but the damage was done. Carla, her voice steady, informed him, "We're revoking your keynote spot tonight, and I'll be recommending a full review to your board." As the meeting disbanded, Reynolds stormed out, his face thunderous, while Anna texted Sarah, "Hang in there, justice is coming." Sarah, reading it in the kitchen, amid the clatter of dishes, felt a flicker of hope amid the chaos. The night had transformed from routine drudgery to a battlefield of egos and ethics, with unlikely heroes emerging from the shadows. James high-fived a fellow chef, proud of his small role, while Theo monitored the feeds, ensuring no further escalations. In Sarah's mind, the ordeal replayed the spill, the insults, the pasta hitting her like a slap. But now, with support coalescing, she straightened her posture, ready to face whatever came next. Her inner monologue was a mantra of resilience. "I've survived worse. I'll survive this." Guests in the ballroom sensed the shift, Reynolds's empty seat at the head table, drawing curious murmurs as the event plodded on, desserts served under a veil of tension. Anna, back at her spot, jotted notes for her article, envisioning headlines, "Tycoon's Tantrum When Power Meets Accountability." The Grand Horizon's opulent facade hid these brewing storms, but truth, like the city's relentless rain, had a way of washing away pretenses. Sarah returned to the floor, her steps surer buoyed by James's words and Mrs. Grant's kindness. Little acts of solidarity. A nod from a busboy, a sympathetic smile from a guest wove a safety net around her. Reynolds, isolated now at a side table, nursed a drink, his mind scrambling for damage control, unaware that the confrontation was merely the prelude to his unraveling. The gala's clock ticked toward midnight, but for those entangled in this drama, time stretched pregnant with possibility and reckoning. As the antechamber door clicked shut behind Michael Reynolds, the weight of impending doom settled over him like a Seattle fog rolling in from Puget Sound. He stormed back into the ballroom, his face a mask of forced composure, But inside, panic clawed at his chest. Years of building an empire, schmoozing with elites, closing multi-million-dollar deals, all teetering on the brink because of one impulsive act. The gala's ambiance had shifted palpably. Whispers snaked through the crowd like vines, eyes darting toward him with a mix of curiosity and disdain. Reynolds grabbed a fresh scotch from a passing server, not Sarah, thank God, and downed it in one gulp, the burn steadying his nerves as he texted his personal assistant. "Damage control now. Spin this as a misunderstanding." But the wheels were already in motion far beyond his control. In a private suite upstairs, hastily commandeered by the Urban Renewal Foundation's organizers, Reynolds's board of directors convened an emergency virtual meeting. Harold Kane, the CFO, patched in from the antechamber with his laptop, his usually unflappable demeanor cracked by urgency. On the screen, faces of board members flickered into view, stern executives from New York, San Francisco, and even London, roused from their evenings by urgent alerts. Carla Ruiz, bridging the call as an advisory council member, laid out the evidence with clinical precision, the security footage, James's audio from the kitchen, and now screenshots of budding social media posts hashtagged #ReynoldsRage and #Galagate. "This isn't just bad optics, Michael," Harold intoned, his voice tinny over the connection. "It's a liability. Sponsors are pulling out. I've got emails from 3 partners already questioning our association." Reynolds, patched in via his phone, exploded in defense. "It's exaggerated. That server was incompetent. Sue the hotel if you have to, but the board wasn't buying it. One member, a sharp-tongued venture capitalist named Victoria Lang, cut him off. Your behavior reflects on all of us. We've tolerated your style because it brought profits, but this public humiliation of a minimum wage worker, in today's climate with viral videos and cancel culture, you're toxic." The vote was swift and unanimous. Reynolds was suspended as CEO, effective immediately pending a full investigation. His access to company accounts frozen, his corporate card deactivated mid-call. He stared at his phone in disbelief as the screen went dark, the Scotch glass slipping from his hand to shatter on the carpet. Downstairs, the gala plodded on, but the energy had deflated. The quartet playing subdued tunes, desserts half-eaten as guests checked their phones for updates. Word spread like wildfire. "Reynolds is out," murmured a tech investor to his date. "Saw the video. Brutal." Partners who'd fawned over him earlier now distanced themselves, canceling post-event meetings via text. Reynolds's phone buzzed incessantly, not with support, but with condemnations, a major client withdrawing from his waterfront project, a charity revoking his honorary title. His net worth tied to stock options plummeted in after-hours trading rumors, erasing millions in perceived value. He felt the empire he'd built crumble brick by gilded brick, leaving him exposed. A man who'd mistaken fear for respect, now facing the void of irrelevance. In the staff quarters, Sarah Thompson had found a moment of respite, changing into a spare uniform borrowed from Maria, the veteran waitress, who'd hugged her tightly. "You've got spine, kid," Maria said, wiping a stray tear from Sarah's cheek. "Don't let that bully break you." Sarah nodded her mind, replaying the incident in loops, the sauce's sticky warmth, the crowd's gasps, Reynolds's sneering face. It hurt deeply, stirring old wounds of abandonment and struggle, but she refused to let it define her. "I just want to finish my shift and go home to Mom and Timmy," she whispered, though a part of her yearned for accountability. That's when Anna Carter found her slipping into the break room with a determined glint in her eye. "Sarah, the board's acted, he's suspended, but there's more. He's coming to apologize, publicly." Sarah's eyes widened. The idea seemed surreal, a reversal of power she hadn't dared imagine. Why me? I'm nobody. Anna shook her head. You're everybody who's ever been stepped on. This is your moment. The apology unfolded in the ballroom's center under the chandelier's unforgiving light. Reynolds, prodded by Harold and Carla, approached the microphone during a lull in the program. The room hushed as he cleared his throat, his usual booming voice reduced to a rasp. Ladies and gentlemen, earlier tonight I lost my temper. It was inexcusable. Sarah, Miss Thompson, I'm deeply sorry for my actions and words. They were beneath me, and you didn't deserve that. He turned to where Sarah stood, ushered forward by Anna, his eyes meeting hers for the first time, without rage, now filled with desperation, a man pleading for salvation from his own hubris. The crowd watched, breaths held, as Reynolds extended a trembling hand. Sarah hesitated, the weight of the moment pressing on her like the hotel's grand columns. Memories flashed her mother's gentle lessons on forgiveness. Hate poisons the holder, not the hated. Timmy's innocent questions about fairness, her own aspirations to heal rather than harm. Though the wound was fresh, she chose mercy, not out of weakness, but strength. I accept your apology, Mr. Reynolds, she said, clearly, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. But remember, words and actions have consequences. Treat people with kindness next time. She shook his hand briefly, then stepped back, the room erupting in applause, not for him, but for her poise. Reynolds slunk away, defeated, while Sarah felt a burden lift her dignity, reaffirmed. The support cascaded in waves after that. Guests moved by the scene approached Sarah with words of encouragement. You're an inspiration, said Mrs. Evelyn Grant, pressing a check into her palm. For your education, keep going. Others followed suit, pulling out wallets and phones to Venmo donations for an impromptu fund labeled Sarah's Future. By night's end, over $10,000 had poured in, enough to cover a semester's tuition and more. Anna, ever the journalist, captured it all on her phone, drafting her article on the spot, From Humiliation to Heroism, a server's stand against arrogance. She posted a teaser on her blog and social media, the story going viral within hours, retweets from influencers, comments praising Sarah's grace calls for broader workplace reforms. Hashtags like #StandWithSarah trended locally, drawing attention from labor rights groups. Sarah, overwhelmed but grateful, texted her mother, "Something amazing happened. Tell you soon." Back home later, as the city lights twinkled outside her bus window, she reflected on the turnaround from victim to victor, not through vengeance, but vulnerability shared. Reynolds, alone in his penthouse suite, scrolled through the backlash. His phone a barrage of notifications sealing his fall. Partners severed ties via email. We can't associate with this toxicity. Media outlets picked up Anna's piece, amplifying the scrutiny. He poured another drink, staring at his reflection in the window. A man who'd wielded power like a weapon, now disarmed by his own hand. But in the quiet, a seed of change stirred. Perhaps this rock bottom could be a foundation for redemption. The gala wrapped up with subdued farewells, guests departing with stories to tell, while hotel staff cleaned up, buzzing about the drama. James high-fived Sarah in the kitchen. "You slayed it out there." Theo from security nodded approval. Sarah hugged her colleagues, the night's trials forging unexpected bonds. As she stepped into the cool Seattle night, the stars peeking through clouds, she felt empowered not just by the funds or fame, but by choosing forgiveness as her armor. The community rallied, online donations climbing, as Anna's full article hit the wires, painting Sarah as a beacon of resilience. Labor advocates reached out, offering scholarships. A local news station requested an interview. Sarah, humble as ever, saw it as a platform to advocate for others' servers, single moms, dreamers, grinding through adversity. Reynolds's downfall continued. Stock prices dipped further, board statements distancing the company from his personal conduct. He issued a canned press release, but the damage was irreparable. His name now synonymous with entitlement's pitfalls. Yet in his isolation, he booked a session with a leadership coach, whispering to himself, "Maybe it's time to change." The night's events rippled outward, a testament to how one act of cruelty could unravel a life while one of kindness could rebuild many. Sarah arrived home to her modest apartment, where Linda waited with herbal tea and Timmy's drawings. "Mom, you won't believe." She began the story, spilling out amid hugs and tears. The funds meant stability, medical bills, paid books, bought dreams within reach. As she drifted to sleep, Sarah pondered the fragility of power and the endurance of the human spirit, grateful for allies like Anna James and even the strangers who'd stood up. The Grand Horizon stood silent now, its ballroom empty, but the echoes of transformation lingered, a reminder that justice, when sparked, burns bright. As the first rays of dawn pierced the Seattle skyline on that fateful morning, after the gala, Sarah Thompson stepped into a world forever altered by the events at the Grand Horizon Hotel. Her phone, usually quiet, except for family texts and shift reminders, buzzed incessantly with notifications, emails from strangers offering support, interview requests from local news outlets, and even a direct message from a prominent nonprofit organization called Youth Empowerment Network, or YEN for short. Founded a decade ago by community leaders in the Pacific Northwest, YEN focused on providing scholarships, mentorship, and advocacy for young people from underprivileged backgrounds, much like Sarah's own story of scraping by in Tacoma's working-class enclaves. The message was from their executive director, Dr. Lena Vasquez, a former social worker turned activist whose TED Talk on resilience had gone viral years back. Dear Sarah, your grace under fire last night has inspired us all. We'd like to invite you to join us as a youth ambassador, share your experiences, help shape our programs, and continue your education with a full-ride scholarship to the University of Washington. This isn't about pity. It's about amplifying voices like yours. Sarah stared at the screen in her cramped apartment kitchen, the scent of brewing coffee mingling with the faint aroma of last night's sauce-stained uniform now discarded in the laundry hamper. Her mother, Linda, peered over her shoulder, her eyes as widening behind reading glasses. "Honey, this is your chance," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion from years of watching Sarah sacrifice dreams for necessities. Timmy, still in pajamas, with his messy bedhead, bounced excitedly. "Does this mean you can go to real college, sis, and help kids like me?" Sarah's heart swelled. She hadn't sought the spotlight, but here it was a doorway to purpose. After a family huddle, tears, hugs, and practical talks about logistics, she replied affirmatively, not for the fame or the funds, though they were lifesavers, but to ensure no other young server, single parent, or dreamer endured the kind of public degradation she'd faced. "I'll do it," she typed, "to pay it forward and protect those who can't speak up yet." Within days, Sarah was onboarding with YEN, attending virtual meetings from her laptop, while juggling her final shifts at the hotel. Her role involved speaking at workshops, advising on scholarship criteria, to prioritize those balancing work and family like she had, and even co-authoring a blog series on workplace dignity. The scholarship covered tuition for her bachelor's in social work at UW, plus stipends for books and living expenses, freeing her to reduce hours at the Grand Horizon and focus on healing her family's financial scars. Linda's diabetes treatments became less of a burden with extra funds for better insurance. Timmy got new science kits, and enrolled in an after-school STEM program. Sarah's story, amplified by Anna Carter's viral article, which had racked up over 1 million views and sparked national discussions on classism, drew donations to Yen, boosting their outreach to hundreds more youth. She traveled modestly to events, sharing her tale not as a victim, but as a survivor. One spill changed everything, but it was choosing kindness over bitterness that truly set me free. Meanwhile, across town in his sprawling Mercer Island mansion, Michael Reynolds grappled with the ruins of his former life. The board's suspension had escalated to full termination, his golden parachute clause nullified amid lawsuits from displaced employees who'd come forward with tales of his toxic leadership. Reynolds' Capital Ventures rebranded under new management, airbrushing him from their history like a bad investment. His phone, once a lifeline to power brokers, now rang with debt collectors and divorce lawyers. His third wife, sensing the sinking ship, had filed papers citing irreconcilable differences, code for his unraveling ego. Social invitations dried up. Former friends ghosted him on LinkedIn. Alone in his home office, surrounded by framed awards gathering dust, Reynolds hit rock bottom one sleepless night, scrolling through hate comments under Anna's article, entitled "Jerk Gets What He Deserves. Hope He Learns Humility." Or for the first time, he didn't rage. Instead, he reflected. Memories surfaced his own humble start as a real estate agent in the 90s, hustling door to door the mentors who'd shown him kindness he later forgot. "What have I become?" he muttered to the empty room. Dawn brought a decision. He enrolled in an executive coaching program called Mindful Leadership Institute, a 6-month intensive in California focusing on emotional intelligence, empathy training, and restorative justice. Led by psychologists, and reformed CEOs, it forced participants to confront their shadows through therapy sessions, role-playing exercises where they played the underdog, and community service mandates. Reynolds, initially resistant, found himself serving meals at a Seattle homeless shelter. Ironic echoes of Sarah's world, where conversations with the down and out chipped away at his armor. He reached out anonymously to former employees, offering apologies and settlements from his dwindling personal fortune. To Sarah, he sent a handwritten letter via Yen. "Your forgiveness was undeserved, but it's motivating my change. If there's a way to make amends, I'm open." She read it thoughtfully, replying simply, "Actions speak louder. Keep growing." Reynolds did. By program's end, he'd volunteered with Yen, indirectly funding scholarships without fanfare, a quiet bid for redemption in a life once defined by dominance. As months turned to seasons, the legacy of that gala night rippled outward, weaving lessons into the fabric of lives touched by the story. Sarah's ambassadorship blossomed. She graduated with honors, launching a podcast called Silent Strength, interviewing everyday heroes, waitstaff, janitors, delivery drivers, sharing tips on resilience and advocacy. Her episodes downloaded thousands of times, educated listeners on spotting workplace bullying and standing up safely. Anna Carter's career soared too. Her exposé won a regional journalism award, leading to a book deal on corporate accountability. James Ortiz, the brave sous chef, parlayed his viral moment into culinary school tuition, opening a food truck specializing in inclusive, affordable eats. Even the Grand Horizon implemented changes, mandatory sensitivity training for guests at high-profile events, better protections for staff, and a dignity fund for employees facing hardships. But beyond the personal triumphs lay the broader legacy, the enduring legacy of that evening's drama. It taught that kindness isn't a weakness, but a superpower, capable of dismantling empires built on arrogance. In a world quick to judge and divide, Sarah's patience and Reynolds's fall illustrated how right actions, even in the face of injustice, can ignite chain reactions of positive change. Dignity once stripped can be reclaimed not through revenge, but through unwavering self-respect that inspires others to rise. The story urged reflection. How do we treat those in service roles? The baristas brewing our coffee, the cleaners tidying our spaces, the drivers delivering our packages. Small acts matter a genuine thank you, eye contact, instead of dismissal, tipping generously, not as charity, but recognition. It educated on empathy's ripple effect. Standing up for the vulnerable like Anna did doesn't require heroism, just awareness and courage. For educators and parents, it offered a parable to teach youth about power dynamics. Discuss in classrooms, use as a prompt for essays on ethics. In boardrooms, it prompted policies on inclusive leadership. In homes, conversations on everyday kindness. Ultimately, the tale reminded us all. We're interconnected, and one moment of compassion can heal wounds, shift trajectories, and build a more just society. As Sarah often ended her talks, choose kindness today, it might just change tomorrow. And in Seattle's misty mornings, where fog lifts to reveal clearer skies, that message endured a beacon for anyone who's ever felt unseen, proving that from humility's ashes, true strength emerges.